Hello friends, good to be with you. Much Ado About Zone 2. That was the title of a paper published in 2025 in the Journal of Sports Medicine. And it questioned this enthusiasm in the longevity circles about Zone 2 training. So first of all, what is Zone 2 training? Because everywhere I look, everyone's talking about the importance of it for your mitochondria and for your cardiorespiratory fitness and your VO2 max. Zone 2 is low intensity training. If you think of intensity as 1 to 7, 7 being extremely intense, Zone 2 is on the low intensity side. It would be the equivalent of a brisk walk in which you can maintain a conversation, but it takes a little bit of effort. Zone 2 exercise is something that you could do for an hour, 2 hours easily. And some of the enthusiasm and hype for Zone 2 training comes from what we've learned about elite cyclists. And one of the exercise physiologists that's famous, that trains a lot of Tour de France cyclists, is Inigo San Milan. And he was on Peter Attia's podcast. And he explained that for these elite cyclists who have the highest VO2 max in the world, these are endurance athletes, they spend 80% of their time doing Zone 2 training, which comes as a shock because these people are biking for hours and hours up and down hills. How are they spending 80% of their training doing low intensity exercise? Well, they also spend 20% of their time doing much more intense exercise. And what we have to keep in mind is what elite endurance athletes are doing may not necessarily apply to us mere mortals. Elite endurance athletes can be spending 20, 30 hours a week or more doing training. So for them, if they were to do high intensity for that number of hours, their bodies would burn out. So at that volume of training, they need, first of all, to do some low intensity so that they can still train but not burn themselves out. Mere mortals like myself do not spend nearly that many hours doing cardio training. If you're active, you might spend a few hours a week doing cardio, and even that might be a lot. And so the question is, what does the evidence show, and how does someone with limited time that's not an elite endurance athlete, that doesn't have 20 hours a week to dedicate to training, what should we be doing? So when these authors looked at the evidence behind Zone 2, here's what they found. And I quote, "Our review failed to uncover substantial evidence supporting claims that Zone 2 is superior to higher intensity exercise for improving mitochondrial and fat oxidative capacity, a result possibly driven by the lack of studies explicitly examining Zone 2 training as it is commonly characterized." So first point is, there just haven't been a lot of high quality randomized studies looking specifically at Zone 2 training and its effect on our mitochondria or our VO2 max. So it isn't that there's evidence against it, it's just that there isn't a lot of evidence for it other than observational data from elite endurance athletes. Now, we do have high quality randomized control data from high intensity interval training and its effects on our mitochondria and our cardiorespiratory fitness. And there, the evidence is very strong. And the nice thing about HIIT is that it doesn't take nearly as long as Zone 2 training. Most advocates say that you have to do Zone 2 training, a minimum dose would be 45 minutes to an hour, and you have to do that multiple times a week. Whereas HIIT, you could do as little as 15 minutes in the session, and maybe even do that once a week perhaps, and still get significant cardiovascular benefits. We also have trials comparing moderate continuous intensity exercise. So this might be the equivalent of a little bit more intense than Zone 2. So let's say like a Zone 3 or Zone 4 where you're jogging for, let's say, 30 or 45 minutes. And we've had studies comparing that to HIIT. And in those studies, HIIT generally comes out as superior. So the way I look at it is, if you have a limited amount of time to spend on cardio, I would spend it doing high intensity interval training. Now, if you have more time, does including Zone 2 or even Zone 3 or Zone 4 level intensity, is that beneficial? Sure. I think any form of exercise is beneficial. And if you're sedentary and you're going after Zone 2, wonderful. That's great. If Zone 2 is what you can do, going for brisk walks, going for maybe a slow bike ride, going for a little hike that's easy. If you can do that, that's wonderful. Any form of exercise is going to have benefits. But if you said, I want to do an optimal regimen, I have a limited amount of time, I would say focus on HIIT. Thank you for listening. And if you like my content, please subscribe.